Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective. To those who are new, we're going to discern today. We're going to discern between sentences for those of us who do the personal growth and the spiritual growth, and for those who instead could use something different, but I'm going to leave that for a minute. And FYI, I'm attachment trauma educated. I'm the lovely mystic who is, yes, woo pseudoscience, but I'm not a pseudo intellectual. And for those of you who do enjoy personal growth and spiritual growth, there is a couple of new things coming up for the PayHip store. You have a new addition to our guides, and that is the accessible guide, which is a lot more practical, and less theoretical, so that you can simply put into practice that which are the amazing gifts of our sovereign blueprint for the regulated leader. So you are a person who does know how great it is to understand yourself. Unlike those who think the opposite. Is it just me, or are most of us terrible at understanding ourselves? Okay, so that's how my face went, and it's I'm really good at knowing myself, inner growth mindset, personal growth, spiritual growth, with the nervous system sovereignty stuff. Wow. So 5 and plus years of nervous system and brain science and all that attachment trauma. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly why some people are going around and not empowered. In fact, there will be those who say that it's a lot like just doing what's good for you, but not knowing. And I'm like, no, actually, you want to be able to make sure that you can spot activated states, because that's where effective realism and also just dysregulation and survival mode is not healthy. Okay, so we are really good at understanding ourselves today for those who are on a journey to do personal growth and spiritual growth. So 5D collective, we are moving towards that 7 dimension. We're going to talk about that one a little bit later. But in the meantime, good versus bad, like a teenager, black and white thinking, self-righteous assholes. So there can be the healthy self-righteous stuff, but I'm going to bring in my 2 cents and say you want to just allow your ego and your 3-year-old to stay on the floor with humility. Just remind yourself we all have subjective opinions. As for the objective facts, there's scientists like Neil deGrasse out there, and that's the part of why epistemically curious, disciplined, and diligent mentors, content creators, podcast hosts will all know that the only way any kind of what support we give you is going to work is once you have nervous system sovereignty, because you will be able to pivot to your ventral vagal state. And so the ones who, on the other hand, don't have it themselves, they create, what do fear-based leaders create? Followers. Okay, so when I spot the 3D, 4D collective, I know what they're doing. So much of life seems to be less about knowing what's good for us and more about consistently choosing it. Being patient is the hardest part. Aren't we terrible at knowing ourselves? You know, my scientist told me just how awful it is for us because we don't know anything about ourselves. Anytime this is coming up, I'm like, excuse me. So this is a 3-year-old. When she's like, yeah, no, I know myself. Okay, so you have your 3-year-old, you have your 16-year-old, you got your prefrontal on, and so that's why personal growth allows you to become the 5D collective and beyond mystic, spiritual, mindful. So with discernment comes functional child adults. You bring forth that wisdom. The word of wisdom diffuses conflict with clarity. You can't bring clarity if you're not an integrated brain, bilateral, vertical, overall. Because the moment you can't discern your own activated state or effective realism, I want to, well, it is right, no, it feels right. You're a person who doesn't need to really be doing anything except for what fear-based leaders do. They fall for, no, they choose each other's charged narratives. They share charged narratives. They share the core wounds: injustice, betrayal, humiliation, rejection, abandonment. They share the core wounds and they don't actually go and heal them. So we have adaptive child part people, or the adaptive childhood pattern, or basically a behavior that is of an emotionally immature person. Immature, they will use all the same words. They might even think they're emotionally intelligent. And all of us can be intelligent, but you're only going to grow emotional intelligence if you navigate your nervous system. And that means you are able to sit in inner stability and be like, wow, this is really fun. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5. Wow, this is really fun. And that's from here. So I didn't need yoga, by the way. Ventral vagal portfolio toning exercises. I also didn't need mindfulness, but I do integrate mindfulness because I've been doing it with mindset skills, sifting sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. So once you get a hold of the guides or the executive summaries of all the guides, you'll see, and the free mindset practice, the 10-minute pivot on PayHip, and all the executive summary guides will be free so that you can have that. And if you purchase the guide, then you'll have that to flip back and forth and stuff. PayHip, if I didn't say it, check out Substack too. And we are on Reddit and Quora. I have communities there. I just haven't planned out the content calendar yet. And LinkedIn. Okay, so wisdom like an adult means that you're going to be able to discern what you're thinking and what you're feeling. You're not going to say there's a good or a bad in the way of what a black and white thinker is, because you don't flip a switch. Because you also don't need control. So the people who have this lack of capacity to wield their embodied brain the way that is of a nervous system sovereign person, they're not their regulated leader. They're not an embodied, emotionally intelligent, aware one. They're a human being who's a teenager version of themselves, and watch as they play on a wheelhouse. And that 3-year-old needs control. No, the 16-year-old, the 3-year-old is still scared, but they use the dark sides of neuroplasticity. And this is just how I'm bringing it to you, because I've seen them play out their non-metabolized trauma time, the 0-8-year-old. Thanks, Pat Ogden, for those words, because actively, as people get older, Gargamel and Grumpy Bear basically become this whatever Gargamel and Grumpy Bear would be, but we won't create that. So we are going to seem like judgmental assholes. We're also going to seem like we're cold and sensitive, or like we're pains in the asses. And some will say, we have real feelings, you have fake ones, and we will say nothing except for nothing. But they are the somatic bypassers, which makes them spiritual bypassers. So they actively aren't choosing to move into the 5D frequency or into the 7D frequency. So basically, they're not choosing the capacity to wield their nervous system and to understand themselves. And then to reassure the 0-1-year-old, hey, you know, I know we would love to prove God, but there's dark matter, dark energy as our alternative. Science and spirituality come together here. Hey, God, I love you, know that. As I will share one of the stories that the regulars know. Teenage boyfriend and I, my first love, FYI, it's not true that the first love is forever and ever. It's love. And people say that this isn't love. The same people who say that are people who are living a nervous system that looks for this thing they think is intensity, but really what it is, it's the visceral, which is a not securely attached relationship. Have you seen drama triangles in TV shows? That is called needing Dr. Daniel Fox, his amazing video on how it works for the nervous system to continuously seek the predictable, excruciating suffering. It's also where limerence is at. It's also where opera was probably created, and the frequency, that note, is completely unattractive to any of those of us who understand ourselves like the back of our hands. And so back to my teenage boyfriend, first love. I'm having a good time, as a teenager will. I have all this stuff going on. He cheated on me. He would break up with me in the summer. I mean, yeah, I had fun. I don't think, oh my God, when I'm sharing this stuff, some people are like, no, I'm sharing it with a smile. No, I'm not faking it. You know, crying is actually the way that we release trauma charges. But no, we don't put grief on a pedestal. No emotions go on pedestals. Nope, they're all on the floor. Everything's scattered on the floor. It's a rainbow. Okay, so before we move forward, discerning. Okay, so here's something I want to run by you. As I'm finishing up your Sovereign Blueprint, the executive summary, you're going to hear a part, but you're going to hear a part that I am not going to use. And I'm going to read to you the part that I am going to use, and I'm going to converse about this. While collective ignorance, unhealed trauma, and rigid identity defense loops cause individuals to mistake emotional intensity for authentic depth, the self-sovereign leader sees these activated states as a lack of inner courage and strength. Now, that is not a sentence that rings true, because that is let me think. That is, you know how I'm a marketer, I've told you this before. So there are those who will say, let's make a good team and a bad team. That's called, I have highlights for a good team and highlights for, if you will, a bad team. So while some would say, but that is objectively, potentially, blah, 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 blah. Activated states, lack of inner courage. Everyone has inner courage and strength, because that 1-year-old and that 2-year-old and that 3-year-old and that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and in the womb, and 9, 10, 11, 12, all those child parts of that human being, they have inner strength and courage. Now, that their grown-ass version won't want to do what's right by them, that's on them. That's called free will. As an epistemically curious, disciplined, intelligent, nervous system, sovereign human being, and attachment trauma educated, they all have courage and strength. None of them move to curiosity, and some of them won't ever move into it at all because we're so terrible at knowing ourselves. Let's go randomly follow jackasses around. Women, gather around and put them on pedestals. Remember, when they fuck you, don't think it. Wedding bells. A smart woman will be like, no, you're trash. Didn't you know you're trash? I got told this when I was a kid. You're all trash. We're all trash. Polyamory, come on, women, we're all whores. Even if we weren't polyamory, we're just whores anyway. So, hey, let's just use all the random words that they like to use. Ignorant people. And yeah, put her on a pedestal. In the meantime, I'm like, oh my gosh, you just told me what you wanted after. Yeah, that's kind of not how that works. Actually, it's the whole opposite. So while there are men who will, in a minute of short, actually, I'll never forget that one, but I'm not even going to go there because this man ended, and I'm like, why didn't you mention therapy? Therapy would have been a great thing to mention right at the end. You go find yourself a good therapist. Here's a number. Instead, it wasn't. So what other people say about you doesn't matter, but you shouldn't be ashamed of what you have done. Integrity. So when people are still actually creating a whole bunch of taboo and whatever on the sex front, if you will, and the monoamory and polyamory, I'm just like, what is this? They're not securely attached, grown-ass fucking human beings. They want their team to be the best team. So monoamory, polyamory, they've existed for eons. If people are in good relationships, which means with people who speak, there's no abandonment, there's no injustice, there's no betrayal, there's no humiliation, there's no rejection, because we're grown-ass fucking human beings who don't bring core wounds into the mix, and we don't actually ignore the fact that we're dealing with people, which is why the first love of my life, seeing someone make it seem like their first love apparently, but it's a story that you get told. I remember they told me about blah, blah, yeah, I remember when the relationship was over, you let him get away. He wasn't my dog. I didn't realize, was I supposed to have him on a leash? No, but you let him get away. I let him get away. I didn't let him get away. He wanted to go. He's happy today. I'm his friend. His partner and I are friends. He's doing great. He got everything he wanted. And I'm like, okay, so at a certain point, someone was like, don't you think they might be happy? Because as a mystic, by the way, you tap into, and a spiritual one, or if you're not mystic or spiritual, the sciences people talk to about the intelligence field. So others will say it's virtual reality. However you want to put it, yes, knowledge. We access it. In fact, actually, I have seen what is it called? A self of me, another dimensional self of me. Like she's actively alive. Okay, this is, and don't worry. It's not, you don't have to take it for like grounded in reality stuff, but she's actively like right now alive while I'm alive. Wow, my future self, I know who she is and what she looks like, and it'll be my future self, but it won't be Maria. Okay, this is the fun part. I love it. I'm woo on all fronts, but you know what's amazing about spiritual growth and ascension and moving into the 7th dimension? It's this, 8th and 9th chakra, masters, because we're using our prefrontal cortex. What else do you want from life? Nothing. There's a commercial. Okay, hold on. So before I lose my train of thought, this is what instead I got to write, because these are the words that represent. While collective ignorance, because there is collective ignorance, unaddressed trauma charges, adaptive child part behaviors, and rigid identity defense loops cause individuals to mistake emotional activation and affective realism as authentic depth, or how feelings are supposed to feel. The authentic self-led person and self-sovereign leader discerns the difference and refuses to outsource their internal leadership or buy into polarized identity, projecting narratives or effective realism distortions. So the aspect of a group of people not having courage or strength, everyone has courage and strength. That's the part about why it's sad that people who don't actually notice that they're still terrible at understanding their depth want to say that I pretend, because to me, a teenage boyfriend, for example, is another human being that I loved and that, in fact, to this day I still love. But no, they weren't like, wow, and they weren't like, whoa. So when I've seen people change their dynamic with relationships based on a breakup, I'm like, but you guys had a relationship for a certain amount of time. It doesn't make sense that you don't know how to continue staying actual friends or in your lives. And when I'm like that weird, I just think, I think that's weird. You use the word love. You were in a relationship for a certain amount of time. There's nothing weird. You just change the dynamic of the relationship because now you're not a couple anymore. And the people who think that if your ex writes you that they want to fuck you by they have to, well, that's another closed-minded person, because if I write any of my exes, I don't want to fuck them, FYI. Oh, and for the polyamory community, we are not whores, and some of us are securely attached, and we don't do that. You're not poly enough, because that's actually not really awesome. And there's not controversy when it comes to love, because anyone wanting to tell you what love is or how to love is another one of those people who, with their rigid identities, think that they know what's best for you. And there's your society of ignorant human beings who are following fear-based leaders, and with their teenage attitude they think they can tell everybody else how to live life. You go live life with your drama kings and queens. In the meantime, some of us are going to continue expanding because we're having fun being ourselves authentically, and we're not feeling it hard. It's not hard to be Maria. And if you're still here, it's not hard to be you. And the ones who know it's hard, well, okay, I know where you can go to make it not hard. Hey, Patrick Tiahan, I'm sending him over to you because Boca Raton won't help you. So when I meet those who are bypassers, spiritual and somatic, I don't think, wow, let me go and copy them. I think, how many people are copying human beings who don't even know how to be badass because they're not authentically anything? Because I still have yet to meet your 3-year-old or your 8-year-old or any of the innocence that was a part of you. What I get to meet are your core wounds and your adaptive child part behavior and your assholishness. And hey, I can be an asshole too. I'm just a different kind. Teenage boyfriend, we're having a conversation, no, an argument. His effective realism, you only believe in God because you're afraid of death. And he's really pissed at God because his friend killed himself. I should have done the whole spoiler thing. But I knew that. And then I also knew the way he was raised and how his mind works, because we were friends before we got into a relationship in the first place. But besides that, there's just this way that I got to get taught about how people, because of suffering out there in the world, they think God's not here, he abandoned his children, da-da-da-da. So, of course, everybody knows the whole injustice thing. But you don't get injustice to justice by throwing, don't cast a stone, forgive for they don't know. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. And who's playing God? As there's only one. Everyone in flesh, they're all in flesh. So as long as people are in flesh, remind yourself that nobody is it. And if they make it sound like they're the only one who's able to be the voice of, well, that's called control, people. And anybody who falls for it, I can't say I don't know what's happening. I can only say that they'll tell me, I found it hard to believe, I'm the first years of life, and they won't believe any of the science. And I don't have things to say about people who, as Neil deGrasse points out, the more distance from objective truth you are, the less likely it is that you're going to help yourself, your family, legacy of humanity, and all that. Okay, so when someone is in a fantasy loop and when they're doing this distorted and delusional, their left becomes delusional, they can go and have fun together. Like the flat earthers, they will continue doing what they do best. Just use their time that way. And I understand that we all have a different window of tolerance, but the point is you can move it into a window of welcome, because that's your sovereignty. So nervous system sovereignty, that's abundance energy mode. We don't need a minimum energy mode. And in fact, if people are still doing that, they don't understand they're doing themselves a double disservice, because your inclination to be in a defensive posture comes, I have her too, but mine is different because I'm not defending my position from morons. As a teenager, I don't have to say anything. I know you're not learning shit, so why do I bother with, I'm not going to talk to you. No, I'll talk. You can talk. I'll listen. And then I'll go and continue learning shit from people who know shit versus making it seem like you know crap. So people that don't actually continue learning, they want to tell us that they know things, but then it's like, no, you're just following around what, you know, is more popular or whatnot. But hold on a minute, I need to go grab something. Okay, so I grabbed a couple of our lovely cards. Here's our lovers, the self-led person, the nervous system sovereign person, the person who knows how to pivot to the ventral, the person who takes seriously that which is attachment, and trauma education, meaning your own self. And so once you've moved into being self-aware, accountable, regulating, which is where I was at already as a kid, okay, so putting the mystic spiritual life to the side, even though that would be, as some would say, you still were raised with it. So, okay, so the part about me being able to share with you, if you're curious of my story, The Ways to God, I'm the co-author of the book, God is Discerning, Quantum is Love. And so when you're rational and as a person means you do know yourself, you'll know where you come from. You know about society, you know about universal societally accepted norms, okay? So that doesn't mean though that they're always the same. And as we move into the future, our species has consistently evolved. So the polyamory, monoamory, there's always been these topics. They're not really controversial, but when you're watching videos of those who are in their defense mode, that's the reason why it's very boring when I'm spotting those people. But they have a place. So the lovers don't have interest in that which are trends. They have interest in that which is discerning, equanimous, that's what God is, and loving, that's his frequency conversation. So the Inspiring Human Potential Collective is all about you be you and I be me. 3-year-olds who are lovers don't think of our brothers and sisters who are sirens as energy cords to cut or demons or any of that. And as a mystic, believe me, I've seen a bunch of things. None of them have anything that I've ever been like, oh my God. But that's because there's only one monster that I was introduced as I was raised Christian Catholic, Lucifer. And I said, hey God, by the time I was 20, no Lucifer, just suffering, a bunch of people suffering. But today I know what that is. So when you meet the ones who want their comfortable, predictable blanket and it's control and it's in unregulated intensity, they are not going to be going on a pilgrimage that actually leads them to their heart, mystic or not. They're going to be continuing to follow people around that they think know what they're talking about. And really the number one thing is they don't notice that they don't love more every day when they wake up. So I'm sad to say that not all people want to get to know themselves. And I'm also, though, knowledgeable about this journey to the point of where when I hear grown-ups saying, why are you making us heal our trauma? Some of us want to stay with it. I don't think, wow, let me look up to you. I think I know that my body feels good, so I can't speak to what you are feeling. What I can speak is that the courage and the strength, you have it like I do. But the courage and strength came from your 0-1-year-old and the fetus. Fetus 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have to spell it all out. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. All of those, I respect the fact that you were not only gifted the short end of the stick, you were set up to fail miserably. Your 0-8-year-old that got not the love it needed to learn how to handle the 11, 12, 13, 14 assholes, and then by the time you became a jackass, that's it. Thanks, facade friend, for the example. So the hand on the heart of forgiving is with rationale and science. Thank you, Peter Levine. I cried day after day after day after day of the first years of my courses. Today I can tell you, the ones who don't want it, they're gonna say things like this, that we all don't know ourselves, and then we choose what's good for us, but we don't know it. You're not empowering yourself. So choose to stay ignorant, choose to stay in the narratives. And so when I see someone say, oh, the teenage boyfriend of mine, the first love, whatever it is, and they're putting that person on a pedestal, I say, well, that was their experience. Here's mine. Love is easy. You do you and I do me, and we do it comfortably. The minute that you would want to try to humiliate, betray, abandon, do injustice, reject, whatever, it won't be something I'll be like, because by the time you get to your 20s and you've met all morons, quote unquote, you don't think all of humanity must be immature. You think nothing, and then when you get to college you think, okay, that's weird, and then once you get attachment trauma educated you say, wow, I really wish I would have known this when Twin Flame 1 came around. Maybe I would have been able to figure out a lot of things, but it's okay, because my life, I look back and I say, it's wait for it. Yes, don't worry, God, I won't leave anybody out in the desert. They get their free will choice. So when you're a bridge, you don't think any of God's children are more special. All of God's children are special. And we tell the Cains of the world they're loved too. They just don't know it yet because they need to go to therapy. In fact, in my prayers, they're all surrounded by therapists. All of them. All 3D, 4D, even though they might stick to their dead end, I get to say, your village isn't that small. Please, let us take, can we take your children when the sun goes out? I know you think we're evil and like horrible, but please, it will be an excruciating, painful death for them. Could we please just, do you love your children, right? You said you love them. So if you love them, you're going to help us. No, your belief is more important. Belief. Science isn't about belief, though. Science is objective facts. Thanks, Neil deGrasse, for holding down the fort. No, you still, okay, flat earthers, have fun. My point, when you spot the ones who don't know about the embodied brain, they tend to go around in circles and with stories. Instead, I say, let him who would move the world first move himself. Thank you, Socrates. And as Aristotle points out, the lovely friend, yes, a friend you love, is considered your second self, someone whose pain feels like your own, which is why we have somatic. We don't do the countertransference thing because we do the pivot thing. So you differentiate and link, and we co-regulate. And so instead of trying to fix our lovely mindsets with a brain stuck in defense, we will use real-time circuit breakers and structured somatic mindset practices to dismantle the survival loops organically. And that's all of us, whichever loops you still got going on. And then as you transcend them, you continue to notice the difference between alert, and integrated. And it gets easier and easier. And that's why integration of the brain. It's with your own capacity to train your mind, the thoughts that come up, to discern the feelings that come up first, and then to notice when you're activated. How long does it take you to work through activation? Like with teenage boyfriend, whenever he would cheat, it would take me a bit, but then we'd get back together, and that was for a whole 3 years. By the third year, I'm like, okay, this is getting old. We're getting older, and I'm about to leave to go to college. Oh, and the argument about the God thing, yes, all I can tell you is he didn't believe me. That was the only man I ever argued about my faith with. And I really didn't argue about it. It was, I believe in God, and I feel it in my bones, and today I'm a mystic, so I didn't lie. And as a mystic, my stories aren't actually like stories for entertainment. But I know people are entertained by them. They think I've smoked stuff. I don't do drugs. No. In fact, I tell people, look, I channel, I download. Oh, look, she came right now. She's here. My other, the one that's living with me, or whatever, however you want to pose it. I forget the words. She's so cool. Look at her. Okay, so that's how it happens in your mind's eye. And so there's multidimensional beings of ourselves. I just met her. She's a new appearance, but I saw her, and then I saw other two people that are part of my oversoul, and I'm going to pause because otherwise I'm going to lose you, but it's so cool. If you're a mystic and you're a downloader and channeler, join me on Substack, let me know. That way we can, maybe we can create an episode on this stuff, because I love when I get to meet. This is just amazing. So, okay, I think that we're going to have a lot of fun as we keep moving forward, because 4D, they continue to talk to you about splits and good and bad, and it's like, we're not there anymore. Please stop. Just stop. Okay, so instead of trying to fix, we don't need to fix, but we want to transcend the... Okay, so as you move into those pivots, the ventral vagal ones, you are going to be working with your mind, sight, skills, sifting sensations, images, feelings, thoughts when unexpected pressure comes around. So you use moments of unexpected pressure to do what? You turn it into sustainable flow, into deep connection, into personal growth and spiritual ascension. That's part of what you'll read in the Sovereign Blueprint, Your Sovereign Blueprints Executive Summary. Okay, and this is where, as I give you also examples, for me, the voice of reason is very big. But for those who would need someone like Bessel van der Kolk, the voice of reason is very small, but somewhat persistent. Okay, so this is why it's an honor to meet those who will have healed, and then they choose to continue doing that which is their behavioral maturity. So personal growth, spiritual growth, and regulated leadership occupy all types of positions, and that's why when it's 5D time, it's always we co-regulate, because nobody is going to be rejected, abandoned, or called names. Okay, so the teenage boyfriend story, this is the part of where I can use him as being told, you let him get away. I'm like, no, he's not my dog. And as I'm also continuing to move forward in life, the twin flame and twin flames and all that great stuff, I was consistently aware of what love is, and it is where I respect our differences with unconditional love. You have flaws and I have flaws. You'll make mistakes, I'll make mistakes. That's it. Betrayal isn't a word that makes me think of, oh my God, sacre bleu, rejection. So the feelings are easy. That's when you know yourself and you understand yourself, because we're all human. Then also the data point. You want to hear a data point? Lovely Dr. Danny Siegel, as he gave this to me. I don't know what studies or where, but the brain science. It shows that when we get rejected, the same part of the brain, the part of the brain that lights up is the same part of when you would get stabbed with a knife in the heart. And so that heartbreak. Now, teenage boyfriend breaks up. I know I'm going to be healing from it. Yes, it took me, I forget, but it took me a certain amount of time, and then I got into my second serious relationship, and then I got into another serious relationship, and then I got to meet twin flame, and then twin flames. And as an attachment trauma educated person today, what I can tell you is thanks to those lovely, lovely courses, I'm a better mentor, content creator, podcast host, friend, lover, all of it. But above all, I saw a sign, and I'm opening up my eyes, and I always see them every single place I go. And so when someone says, it's hard, Rick, to get a relationship, I say, no, you need Terry Real. But let me not be the one to tell you, as people follow you in millions and want to look at your episodes, for they continuously need to watch their back from some fucking liar. And I'm thinking, you need to go and get reparented if you're still watching your fucking back like that and living out a saga. Is you obviously don't understand how love works, and that means that they don't understand self-love, self-respect, and self-awareness, and self-accountability, and self-regulation. Okay, so when someone says, we're terrible at understanding ourselves, no, and that's my 3-year-old. So there's another science man. This is a great man. He did a great video, and he's using some words as well, a grown human being with a degree and more in the field, and he's saying how you can't know yourself. Every time I'm hearing that, I'm like, yes, I can know myself, and that's my trigger. So she's the 3-year-old who's like, fuck that shit, I know me. But luckily I'm a prefrontal 3-year-old, meaning I go here and I'm like, okay, yeah, they're not doing anything except for expressing their opinions. Okay, so that's the pivot. The pivot is reminding ourselves how trauma is not a story of something that happened in the past. Trauma is the imprint that all experiences leave on your soul and your body as your sensations. Bessel van der Kolk. Now, as I've shared, we will pick up our effective realism and our charges, and we will know it. So when you're moving into emotional maturity, that's why as you get older, by the time I'm 20, no Lucifer, no monster, the whole betrayal stuff, I got one twin flame. That threw me kind of a curveball, but not because of the one, no, because then I got a second one, and then I got a third one, and I didn't have any attachment trauma education. And so in the meantime, while the people who think it's thanks to twin flames and the fifth wave that we have dismantled the matrix, I love a story. That's called a shame continuum. As you objectify your own story and don't do what's right by you, so go and get, not you, but the people who didn't bother to get themselves to therapists, they continued to go down a story. Now, some end up with their twin flames, some don't. This is not to say it's a fake thing. What I'm saying is, and you see people giving themselves more credit than they need to for saving our planet and dismantling the matrix. You see what I'm saying? The story, that the mystic stories, that's where the bypassing's at. So while we have, yes, lovely sphere of energy, yes, oversoul, yes, twin flames, yes, all of those ancient books that we have that come with us. The part about this idea that it's the twin flame collective that dismantled the matrix, doesn't that sound like a superhero and a super villain? When they're talking to you about, how is it the words they use? Yeah, like 3D, 4D will tend to make it seem like there's good groups and bad groups, or they will just tend to not make it tangible. So philosophizing, if the word that, I know I'm making up that word, but I'm going to use Maria's words. 5D, you're going to have a securely attached, self-regulating human being. I don't need you to self-regulate. I self-regulate. I don't need anybody to be taking care of my nervous system. If I'm in a room with a bunch of people who are on hypervigilance, I know how to handle myself. That's because of my practice with the panic attacks, the oversoul, you name it. So I've had plenty of practice to get this lovely body into comfortableness with this restorative embodiment and good resilience. Which is why when I saw the 7D figure that I had already seen, it was like a couple weeks prior, or at least a week prior, I was like, okay, that's what I saw. And as I saw the difference between 5D and the 7D, this image, I was like, yes, that makes a whole buttload of sense. Okay, so when someone's becoming familiar with their lovely heart and working with their lovely mind to get out of the survival mode, they're going to continue to do this for as long as they choose to use their I know myself skills and the nervous system sovereignty choice of I pivot to ventral vagal, or I learn my window tolerance and then I handle my window tolerance with healthy behaviors. And then I spot if I do things that are unhealthy, which means the dopamine stuff, but not in a way of believing a dopamine detox, not in a way of believing a predictable crash zone. You're not an object. Okay, so objectifying means you don't take what is your childhood and actively recognize mindfully that's my childhood, which is why I say they don't take things seriously, but they'll create a story. So when someone's talking to me about the teenage boyfriend thing as they're idolizing it, there's two things that cross my mind. They were told this shit because I was told the same shit. The time I'm 20, I'm like, this is bullshit. Yes, I love him, but he's not a more special human being than other special human beings. And people are like, then you don't know love. No, I know what love is from the consistency of it's a feeling that I have consistently with people I build a secure connections with. Actually, I even love people that I don't know. And then there are those who don't believe that's possible. There's your cynics out there, okay? So we have different types of people who feel different types of things. But what did we all get as we were growing up? Who got the stories? Me, narratives, okay? So the creator. Okay, and the destroyer. We don't have destruction. When you meet the ones who think destruction has to happen, they feel the world in ways that are it's very unfortunate. So creator, destroy, sustainer. What I can tell you about every time a tower moment hits, for those who have a strong foundation, authentic self, nothing happened except for you got to mature your emotional plane and you got to gain mental wisdom and clarity. And then you continue to pivot again. And you do it again. When you hear neuroscientists say that the flow state pushes your brain to the edge of criticality, you think, where? Is it a soft push? Because I'm actually having a fun time. I didn't see anything critical. Because there's no, hey, Chicken Little, the sky's not falling, and even existential physics with Sabine was fine. I haven't read it all yet, but I'm not like, oh my God, she answers all the existential questions. Now I won't have a point in my life anymore. People who struggle with life's purpose, they struggle with their own nervous system sovereignty. They don't own their child parts. Your child parts, the first 3 years are implicit memory. That which people find hard to believe. Implicit means it has no words, just feeling. So when I'm sharing these data points, they're information. When you own your nervous system, you're like, that's cool. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for myself. If I grow more loving and more welcoming, then I know I'm doing a great job. If I'm incapable of moving over the hump at a certain point, hey, Peter Levine, you're not practicing anymore. Who does somatic experiencing like you do? Hey, Pat Ogden, sensory motor psychotherapy. You see what I'm saying? That's the responsible person. We are not healers. They're healers of themselves. And when people see snakes and they attribute negative things to snakes, I wonder why. There's your ignorance. So snakes, for example, and all animals in the animal kingdom, everything for those who are of wisdom will be with symbolism, neutrality, not with a good or evil in a way of a charged, rigid story, but instead of aspects that are high and good performing, fake performing. Fake performing could be brilliant. They got an attitude though. Let's say you find the not fake performer who's got a better attitude and they're just as brilliant. You're going to choose the one who has social skills and is brilliant. So when people think that the rigid minds, your brain can fall out of your ass. No, it can't. Those are instructors and educators who I wish would learn how to make information fun, but their ego's all over it. And so you'll see, remember when we talked about Odin? Yes, his eye that he gave up for sacrifice. So people who don't know how to self-regulate, they're not healers because they didn't heal themselves. They're jackasses. And with their comedian clown faces here, unseen, and shadow work they don't do, because when you're talking to me about shadow work, you're not doing it. Okay, so when you're yourself, and this is, I get very passionate, you don't hide who you are, you don't pretend to like, not like, but you also understand that common courtesy, so the one, no ones, and the heart, common courtesy, we all get taught it, but we can't help people who are faking it. So people who are faking it, in the cave they go, and out into the mountains, and like the group who thinks that we're meant to be all the way in the middle of nature without any of that which is modern stuff, they haven't made it to the ocean yet. But they do enjoy the forests and hiding out. And that's because they're keeping themselves safe from that which haunts them. So let's unite, and this is a lovely home, and let's welcome differences. Now, I actually I'm not happy for the 3D, 4D who's going to stick to their dark sides of neuroplasticity, but that's not a choice that we can make for them. And I'm talking about this so we can move from habits to a little bit of also just messages and food for thought, particularly for those of you who are hearing me and not seeing me per se, because these episodes are made, yes, for YouTube, but they're also on the podcast, and I have regulars who have been around for quite some time. And so this Akashic record reader was talking about how they perceived that there would be at least 3 different groups of people. And when I came across that, which is the information that I came across, hold on, wait a minute. Once I came across the information of the ascension energies and 5D and a lot more, one of the websites or blogs specifically mentioned how 3D, 4D at a certain point would consistently commit to this 3D, 4D frequency. To bring the human elements, since I bring human elements, spiritual and spirituality elements. So number 1, as a 5D mystic and as a personal growth mentor, content creator, podcast host, and spiritual growth habits, bright sides of neuroplasticity, you do know yourself and you are nervous system sovereign, and that's why we own all of that, which is the emotional plane. As for the implicit memory, that's something that if it's needing the tending to, as I was saying, someone would be aware of it and they would do what's right by them to do right also by all. For this 3D, 4D, I'm equating it to not only emotionally immature people who are disregarding that which is their selves, but they may have spent money on healing, on confidence, articulated coaching, and whatever, resilience programs. They even might use the word nervous system and or sovereignty or safety. Okay, then they'll talk to you about emotional mastery, self-trust, and they'll talk to you about identity evolution and all of it. They might have done it themselves. If they've done it and they are whole, then all of that will bring them to become a person who is more loving and kind and understanding, not less. They will not be rigid with knowledge or information. They will not be chaotic. They will have, like all of us do, again, the discernment of your own affective realism and emotional charges. Okay, so that's the part of where I am also familiarizing myself with how to continue chit-chatting about our lovely 3D, 4D collective brothers and sisters and the 5D collective moving forward, as I also bring in new pieces of information and channeled guidance messages and food for thought in ways that are for those of you who are self-led. Because if there's one thing I do notice, 3D, 4D, they all are sticking to their special stories. So while they will say, yes, we're the seed of enlightenment, you won't see them knowing that prayer and our lovely ways to God is always through the heart, and that the offering, there's no sacrifice, there's no martyrdom, there's no victimhood, there's no need for us to be pushed into the oblivion. So when you hear those stories, the poison is a poison because it's all visceral, and it's all people who need to feel that their life is at risk to be motivated, which means they're not nervous system sovereign yet. Means that they're still using their survival defense mode. So when your nervous system seeks consistent either hypervigilance or whatever words you want to use, the point that I'm trying to make is that's the modulated embodiment, and the pivoting to be in your restorative embodiment is not happening. And they will say things like this: we're not here to be love, we're here to be lightning. How dare you use equanimity? Don't you see injustice? You need to get all pissy in people's faces. So they will think that feelings are felt that way. I will know that the voice of reason is very small but somewhat persistent, but their voice of reason isn't growing because they are not getting to know their body. Because you need to get to know your body if you want to change people's core way of being in the world, bezel. And because these words are used, and people say, so then people do change. What I like to present is, you didn't change, you became your authentic self, and you got rid of, where are you, healer? You shed some skin and more, and now you know the healthy way of renewing yourself or whatnot. It's basically, I don't need a mask because I can be seen as who I am. I don't have a shadow. I'm not blaming a shadow. I don't have a shadow to blame. I'm being myself. And so an authentic person, you can have 1 twin flame to 12. It'll be the one, the ones, the ones, no ones, because guess what love is? It's easy. You tell me to my face what you think. You have good conversations. You respect. We respect. There you go. That's as easy as love has been for me. So when someone says you let him get away, the teenage boyfriend, he like other people think jealousy is what love is. That's part of their culture. So culture, I'm bicultural. The Italians, not all of them I think, I don't know, but this idea of if you don't want me in this way, and if you're not reactive to when some woman looks at me or some man or whatever, then you must not love me. And that is where our dysregulated, modulated embodied people are at. There's polyamory. You're not poly enough. That's not mature behavior. Just like someone calling a polyamory a whore or whatever, or someone not understanding how to handle differences in a relationship. So the lovely era we're in is one of lovers, because we understand how to love from our embodied brain. Those who don't want to believe in it, they can continue falling for the dysregulated stuff and continuing in their survival mode. What we know is that the disservice is done to them. As for us, we're not afraid of somatic countertransference. We don't have to go away, mystic or not. You'll know how to self-regulate, so you don't have to go on a pilgrimage and go hug a tree and be away from people all the time, which is where I find it hilarious as people are still talking to you about cutting cords. And so here's where beliefs come into the mix. So societal culture and beliefs. That's why I don't really prefer using that word, or truths. It's facts, it's data, but we can use all the words. So if someone say we're here to respect each other's beliefs fair and square, then respect those who are knowledgeable enough to understand that evil doesn't exist in the body of anyone. That also, yes, we're channelers and downloaders, so we're okay with being called the pseudoscience woo-woo, because of course no one taps into it. No, scientists tap into it. They call it something different. The spiritual ones will call it what they will call it, because that's where it's not a divisiveness, but it's we have different origins. So I can understand the quantum physics explanation if I want to the back of my hand. I'm not looking into it so far because I'm not here as a voice for that. I mean, only science I bring in is for you to understand why personal growth and spiritual growth go hand in hand. And so when someone's out in the desert, you will consistently be sent as a messenger and as a choice point. And that's not because you're better than anyone. And that is because we have a relationship with that which is. Call it whatever you want. But when those people, if they go to the dead end, that we all know some will, and they end up staying locked up in their own heads, they're not called names. They still have the same seed of enlightenment. They still will be in our prayers. We will not have sacrificed one day of our life because we don't believe in the poison of this excruciating, painful saga that I need to want you. It's things happen. No, it's basically you will have made your choice. You walk a walk and you talk a talk. And if you don't know what you want in life, well, then you won't know. That's it. So like with teenage boyfriend, third time, hey, dude, we're getting older. What are you doing? Like, make up your mind. 7 days, then I went to my BFF to talk. That's how easy it was for me to say, let's wait till you're calm because you're pissed right now. Discernment means you're capable of understanding when you're deeply upset and with anger, sadness, fear, disgust, surprise, or happiness. Happiness is the number one fun one because you'll just share it with everyone. But the point is that if you're very upset, you're going to be sensible enough to know it's not the best time for me to go. If you're reactive, you can apologize for being reactive because that's how it works when people are self-aware. And as people do choose to be accountable for their own fire. So once you are a master of your fire, you're a master of the flow, you're going to have fun. And as lightning and love, you do know that motion is not necessarily in any way, shape, or form in a way that needs to be allowed and scary. So people who think that fear is what actually has people growing, no, forever growing is because you will have chosen to discern. All that glitters is not gold. But if you will have believed what you were told, and you will have not noticed that smart skeptics know how to do good research, and they know who green sources are, Neil deGrasse, spiritual ones included. Those who don't know how to discern follow groupies around, and what do fear-based leaders do? They don't do anything for each other because they're not actually an elk that is supportive, kind, or consistent. They're an elk that is out of balance, pretentious, high, and mighty. There's your grandiosity, who were in fact modeled a no sensitive chip, and they're all emotionally unavailable. So when you are upset and suffering and sad or whatever may be, that's the part. So the extreme case scenario is you got people who don't know what love is. Doesn't matter if it's twin flame, not twin flame, first love, second love, whatever it is, relationship wise, if you're grounded in authenticity and you understand self-worth the way I've been trying to talk to you about, and you know yourself, you're not going to have lost a part of you. But you will have learned, as a mystic, I learned how not to talk about all of the dreams I have, because they're not dreams, by the way. You're tapping into the sphere of all the thoughts of everyone. And then there's God and Ascended Master, everything. And then there's my, like right now, self and the future stuff, all of it. You name it. Nothing gets confusing for a person who knows how to stay grounded in reality, because my tower, it's a very solid foundation I have. I'm Maria. There's my ego right here. Look. I. So we all understand how ego works. You got it, right? Hold on for it. So when it eat and drink more consciously, that's the healthy elk. Or to gain stability again. Stable, resilient, headstrong, the father. Yes, the masculine, divine, empowered masculine. So you could call this the father. Then feminine, the right, and divine, empowered feminine. And there's our 5D collective. Nervous system sovereign, self-led, regulated leaders. Check out Pay, have fun. Join us at Substack 2. Here's the wolf, guardian of family and tribe. Activism, we don't need to be in the sympathetic for that. Or the modulated embodiment. Our rituals, yes, we actually, it's kind of like the Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, when she's like, but you told me with your rule book, they're more like guidelines. That's how it works, because that's why we are in oneness with Akash and Source. Yeah, so the mystics or spiritual ones who think someone can do something wrong, you do realize karmic balancing is always at play. Like, we're not abandoned by any of the love around us. It's always here. What the heart knows today, the head will understand tomorrow. So if your heart, though, is a heart that is not of one that is a lover, but is one that looks for... Imagine someone doubting neutrality. Imagine someone not knowing how to have a partner, but instead to treat a partner like an enemy. Imagine someone second-guessing every single bit of everything, and in fact, when things go well, they actually bring in shit. Like, they test it. They don't test it knowingly. Okay, so when someone wants to call someone an automaton because they're understanding words, no, because they're objectifying human beings, unhealed trauma, it's no, they're not an automaton in that way. Please do not dehumanize a human being. You have a human being who's playing out their 0 to 8 year old non-metabolized trauma time, and then a lot more than just that. And we have those who don't know, they're in black and white thinking, split thinking, and in fact, they follow around and praise human beings who are particularly moronic, to say the least. But you know, Peter Pan with the Lost Boys and Wendy. So they have a Wendy somewhere. Yep. They don't know what pseudo-intellectuals look like. I do. And I'm not it. I'm pseudoscience because I know who scientists are. So you know who? Neil deGrasse, great dictionary, smartest man, very beautiful. All the scientists I learned from, the book of knowledge. So when you wish upon a star and you do know, I'm alive, right? Pinocchio, I heard one of Peter Levine's mini guides to getting in touch with our lovely sensations, our container, and he's explaining how to be in abundance energy mode is what I'm going to talk about right now. So here's the truth. Where is my truth, by the way? I want to share with you the truth. The card, the truth. Because some of you haven't seen the card yet. Hold on. We're going to use a couple of them. So, clarity, revelation, disclosure. The truth is, if you're self-regulating and you know all your child parts and you're moving to the ventral vagal state, you'll know that Deb Dana points out how for 5 seconds just to sit in inner stillness and steadiness, those who are still working to get comfortable in their ventral vagal state will be like, I can't feel good because something bad's going to happen. Okay, so now imagine someone who has no idea that that's what they're living. And then imagine that they have a favorite person. And then imagine that the favorite person is a person who doesn't know anything about attachment trauma. And that favorite person has a very straightforward discussion. Yes, you got that. Okay, so now imagine finding out, thank you, Kylie, what split thinking looks like. And then understanding, oh, wow, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much, Kylie, for that story. Our soul recognizes the truth. Something is wrong. This is way exaggerated for like what this is like, and actually this is really odd. This one's odd. This one doesn't make any sense. It's not spice. Nobody spices anything up when there's smoke and mirrors. So authenticity is what the truth is, and this card is so beautiful. Here it is. There we go. But you're always gonna roll the dice, and that's because 50-50, right? So people, they don't actually hurt people's feelings if you're a person who has a core that is whole. It's only when people don't know themselves, they still have wounds, they're still not owners of their default mode network, and so that means you don't own your brain, the anticipation machine, and you don't own your mind, which looks for patterns outside of you, but the default mode network also creates a pattern of you. And so if you do own all of you, then you'll know, with or without crystals, how to re-energize yourself. You'll know what can make you, be afraid. So for me, there's physical threats that are the number one things, and panic attacks. Other than that, people, not really. But you'll understand your choice points. And so when you're choosing people to be part of your herd, like Teenage Boyfriend, I know I make fun a lot of our stories, but with all respect. And the ones who will take and misunderstand, I know that part too, because I got plenty of them. But how am I going to say this? I think that people who are emotionally mature understand what I'm talking about. That's what I think. People who are still in the idea of how you should live or not live. So it's usually when someone wants to tell other people to be like them, that people will talk over something. And I can do that too. We can all do that, which is why let's be aware. And when signs like feathers come around and our dreams, we are actually not only are we processing things that we can have lived from our day to day or from our life, but we also consistently, so for me, my dreams began to be of 3 different types of states. And I still understand how it works for when things come up, for us to have omens, good or bad feelings. And so our experiences, they come with us, which is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. That's the sort of truth. So my teenage boyfriend, twin flames, all that amazing stuff, yes, it comes with, that's why you talk about things. And that's why it's not baggage that we carry. It's, yes, we have stories. All of us have stories. But the people who actually think that they weigh each other down, that is not true. That actually is quite sad, because that means you have a person who doesn't know how to open themselves up to the possibility of living an abundant very crystal clear life. And so when someone's used to the fickle, and when change happens, they don't know how to handle it. Okay, so you know yourself, you'll know how to be patient, and you'll know how to bring forth that which is the expanded version of you, and you'll have fun with it. And that's why we're all here, the 5D Collective and beyond. It's simply put, people who are themselves. But for the mystics and the spiritual ones, as we move into the future, we are going to find out how much more of an amazing journey it's going to be. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So this Akashic record reading that I was watching, as they're talking about what they're seeing, I was understanding, yes, so 3D, 4D, as I had already read, they're going to stick to what they're going to stick to. They're the people, so remember how in the other episode I talked about when the day the sun will go out, we'll just go say, hey, can we take the kids with us? Does anybody want to come? The people who think we're evil because we're using science, technology, the other people who are going to go and want to live in nature because they want to live off the grid, anyone who's just basically, I'm fed up with the world the way it is, okay? So all of the people who are overwhelmed with our society at this point and who don't want to participate. Oh, and by the way, the ones who don't know how to wield their nervous system, you think that they can actually do things, but the reality is, luckily for us, because kids have to go through a specific number of years of academia, even if they're epistemically lazy, they still will learn, because that's why systems are in place, by the way. So my point, though, is that the systems update, and those who don't know what the system will look like and are using the past, they're not understanding that the past isn't what makes the future. But hold on a minute, because obviously our left, and like Thomas Campbell points out, our brain likes to make sense of things. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some human stuff besides the mystic spiritual stuff is done. I shared with you all the cards. We're doing great. We're all going to be building our lovely enlightenment, our spiritual awareness. Those who will want to grow, they're going to grow. The ascension energies, when they come about, that's your opportunity to process charges. And as you get to know more of yourself, you get to also bring forth your soul's purpose. In fact, actually, my purpose is to support you to be you. And when people said, well, why would they need you? I said, they won't need me, they'll want me, but really there's mindset practices for you, so you can independently do them. They're on the Pay-Up store, there's the guides for you. And then, yes, there is mentorship for those of you who have specific objectives. We have our paid podcast episodes, which I do have plans for, so there's a paid podcast audio primarily, but also video on Spotify. Substack, we're going to have our free lovely community and the paid subscriber community. So there's plenty of ways that you can join in on a journey, but mentorship is offered for anyone who's smart enough to say, yeah, I want to journey with you, because that's what discerning people know. They know how to pick who they want to work with for their own best interest. That's what a self-sovereign person is. So when you see someone who wants to use emotional intelligence, but they have the lack of capacity to smile in the face of any kind of adversity, sure, you know what you're talking about. Have fun. In the meantime, though, if a good portion of people say, don't most of us not know ourselves whatsoever? Yeah, no, maybe you don't know yourself. I know myself like the back of my hand, and when I find out shit, it's because she tells me shit. It's not shit, though. And basically, it's called Maria's emotions. That's how easy it is, which is why, again, teenage boyfriend, I look to the past and think I would have been able to bring forth that relationship. And that's because love isn't by, oh, you have to be like I am. No, love is basically we're enjoying each other, and not just a little bit, obviously, because otherwise it's not a flat line. Securely attached, healthy self-worth relationships are fun. What's boring, you want to know what's boring? What's boring is being informed of what twin flame is, and then thinking that means, because see, when you hear about what, it's a piece of your own cloth, so you're like, wait a minute, then it's confusing. I know exactly what I want. How is this so long? Story short, though, I do understand my entire journey, and I've thanked every time that I've gotten to pivot and grow some more and grow some more. At one point, though, I was talking to God. I'm like, hey, God, so listen. I went to the desert. I wanted to leave. The desert didn't let me go. You know, the hand action, not the desert. But today I know. Okay, so when people are fickle and they're inconsistent and they've chosen to continue to second their dysregulated stuff, they're going to live out that which is their own whatever it is that their narrative. So when people say weddings, ball and a chain, or, again, life's hard, anytime you're using words, they do matter. This is why I love you, Sylvester, but I'm going to make fun of you for a minute. Sylvester Stallone, I love the man. Well, I don't love him, but yes, I love all. That's what I know, so you don't love anyone. You know what? Whatever. You can continue with that. Some people, they need to feel that you love only them. Only them. And it's like, well, it's kind of in my body, the oxytocin gene hormone. And, it's kind of like the dopamine thing. I thought that it was yucky, and I'll still say it's yucky, but no, it's just the dopamine detox people made a trend. Okay, long story short, as we get back to what we were talking about. Oh, our 5D collective is going to have fun. So I'm still curious about the aliens. I actually have to watch a couple of episodes. As for the Ascended Masters and the spiritual ones, we're going to have so much fun with our future selves. You're in the moment organizing information, no, cataloging it. You're saving it for future. And then I don't know what's going to come up about Atlantis, but something's going to come up about Atlantis. And I love when somebody's like, I predicted 20 years ago. And you're like, oh, wow, bravo, you predicted 20 years ago. Okay, we all can predict stuff, but are you done showing off? But okay, we all can show off a little bit. Anyways, I lost my train of thought, but whatever I was going to say, it was going to be you be you and I be me, and we're in good company. So nobody has to move into the 5D, into their ventral vagal state. If someone feels life hard, and they will continue to second their life is hard in the story they were given, and they don't notice that their frequency is their capacity to wield themselves. Okay, so I am bringing in, we're all children inside, children of God. We all want reassurance, and we're all scared, which is why there's a short that didn't go live, and I'm kind of upset about it, but I'm probably not going to post it just because there is the extended episode. But what motivates you? Love or fear? And if you watched the episode, I talked to you about healthy fear is what you're going to have when you have love. When you're motivated by love, you say, I have 24 hours. This is not a game. I am not playing. I am authentically here. I have all these emotions. You have all these we all are. This is as easy as it gets. So when someone uses some storyline, whether it's for a job, whether it's for a relationship, whether it's whatever, they're objectifying, which is distancing themselves from that which is happening, because their nervous system is not of their ownership. So they are overwhelmed. They're bogged down. They're whatever. Tara Brach gives plenty of mindfulness videos. Not all people are meant to do mindfulness yet. Mindfulness discernment takes place because if someone doesn't know how to self-regulate, they will not have learned how to autonomously. Thank you, Pat Ogden, for informing us. They will need to learn first in a safe space, and that's because it might take 7 to 10 years for them to get completely integrated and whole to the point of where they can contain sensations, images, behaviors, affects, and meanings, see them, and then not be a jackass, because that's all they are when they become Grumpy Bear with Gargamel and don't move out of it. And there's their control with their comfortable blanket, and they then on a wheelhouse, and that's why at a certain point you're like, who the fuck is this person? I don't know who you are. Oh my God, wow, you are automatically just speaking the same shit. Okay, now that makes a lot more sense. It's a broken record. I'm a broken record, but in a very different way. I tend to repeat things until I figure it out, and then I move to the next step. So anyways, the part that I'm trying to let you in on, we're not going to dehumanize and demonize or objectify difficult experiences. Attachment trauma educators empower us. We are empowered because we've chosen knowledge. You don't just wing it. You choose what's healthy because you understand what health is. And while some will say it's common sense, my lovely diet is going great. They're like mathematicians. And no, you don't blindly trust anyone, but you'll discern what professionals you work with, which is why the mass consumer, we want to support them to learn to discern. And it's not based on our likes and dislikes, no, because that's the part of what makes people into that which are not helping others. Hold on for it. There was a specific quote that said, Guru has shared in the past. And that's why Neil deGrasse, if you want a reliable source, Neil deGrasse is amazing as a reliable source. Then there's all these academics, Bill Nye, Okay, but I do my best to be a reliable source. Obviously, as a mystic, I will be called a bit of this and a bit of that by those who believe self-help and mysticism to be bad, and all the things that they like to say. But I get it because they will have had certain experiences. Also, what I get is some disregard they have mustered on their chin and need therapy. And so for that, I can't say anything because they'll say, it's not true. They're just trying to make everybody have to go. No, not really. But some people, they definitely could go. But hey, if they don't want to, you're not going to make them go. So free will. Good intentions are not enough. It takes the right action performed with the right consciousness to produce the necessary results. Thank you, said Guru. And he has something about likes and dislikes too. It's may you choose what works and not what you like or don't like. What works is nervous system sovereignty. What works is understanding we do see the world the way we feel it. What works is knowing that it's a very, very personal journey to heal your own implicit and explicit memories from your childhood, because relational trust relationships will have been, that's what will have been broken. So those core wounds, and being able to be as angry as can be and in the fetal position if wanted and all that, I don't know it because I don't have a 3-year-old that ever felt that. The collapse, the shame, the submission, or the performance pretending. I don't have a clown mask. It's Maria, and that is it. And that's because I was allowed to. And to this day, my 3-year-old still comes up with my mom. It's like snap and done. So this is why understanding how it works, and when someone wants to say, let's not heal trauma, no. You don't want to heal it, don't heal it. But we're going to talk about it, and we're not going to say that those who are not healing are not strong or courageous. No, they have inner courage and strength. They're just now deciding to abandon that route and to go down a different route. So when you meet fantasy stages people, they're not interesting. But you don't look to the past and think, oh, my twin flames, they wasted all of the years of my life. No, you think, oh, I'm so happy that they kept me far away. Thank you, God, for keeping me away from that which is what I would not have treated poorly, but that which is, let's have a very common sense conversation. Like a real, really strong one, though. And so anyways, I'm just going to conclude with no trauma therapy is complete without really addressing brain, mind, and body, and really connecting all three. Thank you, Ruthlanius. And as Aristotle points out, a friend you love is considered your second self. And that pain of that friend, you'll feel it. And as Sadhguru points out, there are two kinds of people, those who make things happen and those who enjoy it when it happens well and complain when it doesn't. The biggest irritant of the whole twin flame thing, and just the 4D mystics in general, the 3D, I mean, they're just lost in the devil's time. That's it's like, I don't even know. Seriously, no, I do know. Let's respect their beliefs. Okay, you know what? I don't think you really love your kids, even though you're saying you do. But the fact that they think science, technology, advancing knowledge is not good. It's like really, like that's how non-bilaterally integrated brain. This is my rational part, which is why I'm okay with when people are like, you're woo-woo. Yeah, I'm woo-woo. You keep telling it to me, but meantime, how about we talk about serious stuff? So dehumanizing people of your oversoul, cutting cords, all that other stuff is very irritating to a person who says these are all humans, they're all made the same, they all have feelings, they all have a heart, they are all alive. And while you're dehumanizing and demonizing and using words from textbooks and not getting attachment trauma educated and not understanding what it means for the corpus callosum to be impeded in its growth, for the entire right mode to not have been given the proper input, for the hippocampus to be impeded in its growth, for the amygdala or the whatever, there's 4 areas, okay? So when someone learns about childhood developmental trauma and the embodied brain, you don't think, oh, that's fucking bullshit. You think, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Once you understand that, thank you, Robert Sapolsky, with your book Determined. Haven't read it yet, but that's the part of where those first 8 years of life count, and so on and so forth. People who are impatient with other human beings and are enraged, I'm like, okay, you're enraged. As Russell Colt's book, Anger Management, I forget the whole title, you're dumbed down now. Now you're just looking at stereotypes and you're looking at generalizations, because that's how it works when the embodied brain gets dumbed down. Okay, so when people want to say they're empowered, but they own nothing of their emotional wielding, and then they own nothing of hearing themselves. This is what pisses off a person who says, excuse me, stop offending. I mean, yes, the masculines have irritated all of us for the whole twin flame thing, but not to the point of where we're actually continuing with words. And okay, so you respect people and their choices, as we have chosen to respect those who choose to say with their belief that they're the rightful ones and the good ones, and that all of those of us who instead live these lives are bad. And so discern, please, because discernment comes with mental and emotional clarity, which means I have effective realism. Yes, I do it too, but I notice it and I say sorry if it comes up. I have activation too, and I'll say sorry, and then I won't feel like I am over adapting to jackasses. No, because I will know if I can do it. Not everyone has the same resilience, and not everybody got to start their first 8 years of life the same way, and I have answers. I don't have questions. I don't have confusion. I actively don't think of relationship as therapeutic, because I'm not going to analyze any of our relationships, but I understand that yes, we will heal with the secure connections and the healthy self-worth people. Yes, that which was broken, but that's only if you're aware that you're actually still living out your 0-8-year-old, and therefore you mature your 0-16-year-old because you don't want to bring your past into the room and project it, and you don't want to use your effective realism or your emotional charges or your dysregulated emotional stance or any of your core wounds with the adaptive child part that gets all in my face. And so this is the part of where, when I think of those who go on all these different groups and they're not any of them noticing that they are not yet stable within them, it's they have courage and strength, but they didn't move to curiosity, and they haven't noticed that their courage and strength is now nothing, because they're not actually courageous or strong anymore. They're using what was courageous and strong from their 0-8 years of age to defend themselves. So their adaptive child part mannerisms are not impressive, but they're not going to be demonized, dehumanized, or continue to be brought into a little group of the evil thing, because the evil people won. There's a lovely Michael Stone, his friends are chronologist skill. I've talked about it. And the only ones who are fascinating, I'm being sarcastic, are the ones who are followed around by the ones who need help. So the 0-9 need help. The 9-14, I believe it is, are the ones who are being praised and bowed down to as they're the Peter Pans of the world with the Lost Boys. And a Wendy, I'm not a Wendy. So it's like, hey, you need Neil deGrasse, not me. I'm better off over here where I'm wanted with the people who are like, okay, so the last ones, we really need to see how to work with that, because the last ones create a dangerous environment. So yeah, we're going to work with that. So they're all surrounded by therapists, by the way. But from the scale, the last ones are, yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But my point is, together, those who are long sight. So your executive functioning areas, that's what they serve. This is why a guy who said we're going to change the economic system, he's badass. We have a bunch of badasses out there, and that's where it's at. So again, thanks for stopping by in the meantime. So our habits: epistemically curious, disciplined, diligent. You know yourself like the back of your hand. You continue to find out about yourself, and you continue to apologize whenever mistakes are made. But at the same time, you're like, hey, I'm in flesh. I'm only human after all. Don't put your blame on me. Even though shame, blame, fault, revenge, we know that's fair and square, we do want to take accountability and responsibility. And that's first and foremost of our mental clarity, as our emotional charges say, I want to, what's is right, and acknowledge that what feels is always going to take place first. So let's discern our feelings. So I have feelings coming, and I love every one of you. And I can randomly cry on screen, and some jackass thinks it's not true. Okay, so anyways, let's respect that, which is everybody feels differently. And as I said, for me, it's easy to feel and think. And so I do know myself. Do you know you? If you've made it all this way, join us. Check out PayHip, check out Substack. Anybody else you know that does know themselves and loves to do that, which is mindset practices, journal prompts. They also like funny stories. They're also curious about the future. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about the future, but not for now. Not for now. We will wait to see what happens with our community and how we build and what happens, because they keep coming. They keep on talking to me. All of that which wants to come forth. So, but for today, we are done. And so thanks again for stopping by. Have a good one.